For over 1,000 years, Star Wars fans were the guardians of peace and respectful disagreement in the old fandom. For the dark times, before the Disney buyout. A young group called the Fandom Menace, an ally of ours before they turned evil, inadvertently helped Disney hunt down and destroy the fandom. They betrayed and politicized the fandom. Now wholesome Star Wars fans are all but extinct. The Fandom Menace was seduced by the dark side of the Force. How ironic.
Yo, who the fuck is MattCMG? Hello there. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to a fresh new episode of Internet Idiocracy, the show where we make fun of the stupidity from all corners of the internet. I'm your host, but not a Force ghost, MattCMG, and today, let's talk about Star Wars fans. With the Star Wars franchise being as big as it is for the past 50 years, you'd have to be actively avoiding it somehow to not know at least a little bit about it. Like, even your fucking grandma knows what a Darth Vader is. They know what an R2-D2 is, you know? Like, you know what I'm saying? Personally, I like Star Wars, but I'm not a huge die-hard fan or anything. You know, I watched the original 6 movies growing up. I watched the Clone Wars animated series as a kid. I played a fuck ton of Lego Star Wars and the Battlefront games. And I think even kids who hated Star Wars still had toy lightsabers as kids. I've had my fair share of Star Wars Expanded Universe lore video binges, I tell you what. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan out there, you know, Star Wars wasn't as defining to me as Pokemon or Avatar were, but it still had a pretty big presence in my childhood. Even today, I still kind of like some of the stuff they're putting out, like I like The Mandalorian and some of the new stuff. I said some. Fucking bastards. I'd like to think that I'm a pretty casual Star Wars fan, but there are some people who take these fantasy space movies just a little too seriously. Enter the Fandom Menace. The Fandom Menace started off as a group of prominent Star Wars fans who showed massive distaste for the direction Disney was taking the series ever since they acquired Lucasfilm in 2012. But back then, the Fandom Menace name was really only applied to a select few YouTubers and apparently some comic book writers who literally formed a group called that. They had a group called the Fandom Menace. But nowadays, the Fandom Menace is a term that is now applied in a more general way to describe toxic Star Wars fans, many of which now have very political motivations. It's one thing to dislike a movie, but it's another thing to call someone a cuck for liking it, or spreading lies and rumors about people you don't like. We're gonna get into all of it, so smash that motherfucking like button, let's get weird, let's get wild, and pull out your lightsabers as we take on the Fandom Menace. The origins of the Fandom Menace take us back to 2017 after the release of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. After a lukewarm response to The Force Awakens and a generally mixed response to Rogue One, The Last Jedi created a huge divide in the Star Wars fandom. Half the fandom absolutely loved it for what they viewed as subversive storytelling and deeper themes, while the other half absolutely hated it for some of its bizarre writing decisions and poorly developed characters. Much like what Gangsta did for Pokemon and what The Legend of Korra did for Avatar, the Star Wars fanbase was split in half over The Last Jedi, with some going as far to say that it's the greatest Star Wars movie ever made, and others who think it completely ruined the entire franchise, both of which are complete stretches. I think you guys get the picture, and if you've observed this in nature, you probably already know, but The Last Jedi divided the fan base, or at the very least, widened the schism between the two extremes that had already been growing. But let's be real, this divide did not start with The Last Jedi. It started back in 2012 when Disney bought out Lucasfilm and started doing shit people didn't like. You know, they canceled the beloved Clone Wars series. They took the Clone Wars team and put them in a more cartoony series in Rebels. They made The Force Awakens, which was essentially just a rehash of A New Hope, and they got rid of the old expanded universe that people really enjoyed. The seeds for people hating what Disney was doing to Star Wars were planted long before The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi was just the straw that broke the camel's back. Shortly after the release of The Last Jedi, a dedicated group of Star Wars fans decided that they had had enough. They hated what Disney had been doing to the series, so they decided to unify and make their voices heard. Several prominent YouTubers, including Ethan Van Sciver, Geeks and Gamers, and World Class Bullshitters, and a few others, banded together to do exactly this. And thus, the Fandom Menace was born. The Fandom Menace was simply the name of this group of YouTubers who hated the Disney era of Star Wars. And if that's all that it was, nobody would really have a problem with it. The problem was that things got a little bit out of hand, as things like this tend to do. More and more people kind of rallied behind these YouTubers, And even though the big three who originally started the group have since moved on and don't really seem to care as much as they used to, the group that they created became much more than that. The Fandom Menace was no longer just a group of YouTubers anymore. It was a whole movement, an ideology for anti-Disney Star Wars fans to rally behind, even if nobody was directly leading or organizing them. The Fandom Menace isn't even just limited to Star Wars anymore, as they now apply it to other nerdy franchises like the MCU and other kinds of shit. The Fandom Menace went from this small collective of frustrated YouTubers to this decentralized mindset that it is now. Now let me get one thing straight here. I would not be talking about this right now if all the Fandom Menace was doing was calmly or even firmly or aggressively saying what they don't like about Star Wars right now. If all they were doing was criticizing the movies or Disney's business practices, I would not have a problem here. I have zero problem with criticizing things even if your criticisms are completely misguided. Like, you know, for example, like these hour and a half long Last Jedi reviews. I might not agree with everything that they say in them, but I 100% respect their right to exist as long as they aren't spreading hate or spreading misinformation. The problem though is that the current Fandom Menace does exactly this. They just spread hate and spread misinformation. At this point, the Fandom Menace isn't even about whether the movies are good or bad anymore. The movement has become so bastardized by what I assume is the quest for internet clout that it's not even about the movies. It's about the people making them. It's about unrelated politics, and it's about completely making shit up just to spread rumors and get clicks. You might not agree with what the original Fandom Menace group was aiming to do, but at the very least they had a defined goal of making their voices heard. The Fandom Menace as it exists now seems like it's only out for clicks and will obtain those clicks by any means necessary, even if that means lying and politicizing every little thing.
Oh no, I'm not brave enough for politics.
I don't know what it is about the sequel trilogy, but apparently whether you like or dislike these movies can be seen as a political stance, which is completely fucking asinine to me. Well, you know, I say I don't know what it is, but I think we all know what it is. Apparently, if you like The Last Jedi, you're an SJW cuck, while if you hated it, you're a right-wing misogynist. I don't think it's crazy to say that this mindset is not even remotely accurate, but I'd be remiss to not tell you that there are definitely people who fit this description. Just by looking at the uninformed cesspool that we call film Twitter, we can see that a lot of left-leaning feminist types really related to Rey and Rose in the sequel trilogy. They really wanted Poe and Finn to be gay. They liked the trilogy's themes regarding identity and family, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, the kind of stuff that's really relevant to the left. Meanwhile, on the right, we've got people who hate the movies for daring to question the past and for spreading SJW propaganda. Lo and behold, the people who say shit like this are often the same people currently representing the Fandom Menace movement. What I'm about to say to you right now should not be seen as a political take. In fact, it's probably one of the most apolitical things I've ever said in my entire life. Having women in a movie is not SJW propaganda. And if you're offended in any way by what I just said to you, then chances are you're a bigot in some capacity and are probably part of the problem. Like that's not even like remotely a partisan take, like at all. But now here's the deal, right? You are entirely free to dislike the female characters in Star Wars. You're free to dislike Rey, you're free to dislike Rose, you're free to dislike Holdo, Leia, Cara Dune, fucking Maz Kanata. Doesn't really matter. You're allowed to dislike these characters, but when your reason for disliking them is that by them simply being women that they're now pushing an SJW agenda, you're a fucking bigot at that point. Maybe I just haven't been looking hard enough, but I am yet to see how any of these characters simply existing is any form of SJW propaganda. Like, we could totally get into the specifics about how some of these characters were very badly written, but that is entirely separate from them existing to push some fucking SJW uprising or some shit. Like, what the fuck? The reason the Fandom Menace is so adamant about Star Wars now having an SJW agenda is because of some statements made by the Disney higher-ups that essentially said that they want to make the Star Wars series more diverse to appeal to a wider audience. It makes perfect sense why they would do this, right? You know, it makes Star Wars more accessible to more people, which is a win for them. Like, this is such an innocuous statement that I genuinely don't know how you can have a problem with that, quite frankly. Women and minorities have always been in Star Wars, some in very prominent roles pre-Disney. So why don't you have a problem with those characters, but you do with the new ones?
Oh, you dropped this one, Chief.
Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that every diverse character in the Disney era is well written, but that's entirely separate from them being a diverse character. This leads into something that ends up becoming a much larger topic than we really have time for today, so maybe I'll save that for a different video. So what I'll say for now, though, is that representation is a double-edged sword. You can have extremely well-written characters that just so happen to be diverse, or you can have characters who are written around that diversity, that diversity is part of their character in a non-pandering way. But ultimately, it's not really about the diversity, it's about the way you write it. Criticize the way a character was written 12 Ways to fucking Sunday. Nobody would really care. But as soon as you bring in the character's race, gender, etc. into it, you start to look a little bit sus. For example, Rose Tico from The Last Jedi is a character worthy of criticism. There are many faults with the character. You can criticize the character all you want, but as soon as you bring race into it, you kind of out yourself as a bigot, especially when that character's race and gender have nothing to do with their character. Much like representation in media, idpol is a double-edged sword too. Another example of Disney supposedly using Star Wars as SJW propaganda is the tagline of "The Force is female." This was actually a tagline from Nike to promote their Air Force Ones, but was adopted by Star Wars fans after a picture of Lucasfilm CEO Kathleen Kennedy wearing the phrase on a shirt went public. There's actually a Reddit post out there that details how Kennedy has ties to Nike and that the phrase may have been made with this double meaning in mind, but regardless of how that came to be, the Force is female has two clear intentions: to market and appeal to girls whilst also promoting their earlier plan of diversifying Star Wars. Neither of the intentions behind the slogan are even remotely malicious, but some Fandom Menace dudes didn't think so. I've seen plenty of takes around the internet from the Fandom Menace that say things like, they're trying to elevate women by alienating men, which the slogan simply does not imply. I've also seen literal interpretations of the slogan where people actually think that Disney is trying to like retcon the Force to have a gender, which misses the point so unbelievably hard. What do you think they call up Dave Filoni, be like, hey Dave, yeah, we're retconning the Force, so make sure you change the fucking lore accordingly. Them having a catchy slogan doesn't mean that they're changing the fucking lore. Like, what? While the slogan was clearly a marketing scheme, it's a highly inoffensive one. They know Star Wars already has the male audience for the most part, so market to the female audience and double your profits. Like, it's not that hard of logic to follow. Okay, but okay, whatever, right? With everything we've talked about so far, let's assume that Disney genuinely is trying to push some sort of political agenda with Star Wars, right? How is that any different from the other two trilogies? The original trilogy was made specifically as an allegory for the Vietnam War with an anti-war, anti-imperialism message with some allusions to World War II.
They're using asymmetric warfare against a highly organized empire. I think we call those guys terrorists today. We call them Mujahideen, we call them Al-Qaeda.
When I did it, they were Viet Cong.
Exactly. So were you thinking of that at the time?
Yes.
So it was a very anti-authoritarian, very kind of 60s against the man kind of thing.
The prequel trilogy, Revenge of the Sith specifically, is a clear allegory for the war on terror.
Either you are with us, or you are with the terrorists.
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Even the Clone Wars series showed the viscerality of war in a negative light. Contrary to what the title suggests, Star Wars is very anti-war and has always been. That is an inherently political stance, and in this regard, Disney would not be doing anything differently by being politically charged, just with different political topics. Granted, they don't always stick the landing. Having a political message doesn't mean that you spread that message effectively. You know, criticize them based on that, criticize them based on whether or not they spread that message effectively, but let's not pretend that they're breaking new ground by being political in the first place. I guess the point I've been trying to make here is that the Phantom Menace will look for any reason to gatekeep Star Wars and will oftentimes use very politically charged motives to do so. I think it's pretty damning that the culture the Phantom Menace has created is so against being inclusive and making Star Wars something for everyone, to the point where when Star Wars actors like Gina Carano knowingly say some very bigoted things, the Phantom Menace is right there supporting them. Not a good look, guys. You don't have to like what Disney has been doing with the franchise, you don't have to like the new characters or the new direction they've taken their marketing, but the problem occurs when you take those things as personal jabs towards you. No, you fucking idiot, they're not trying to retroactively ruin your childhood by integrating more women and minorities into the series, nor are they promoting an SJW agenda by doing so. These things are completely inoffensive to any rational human being, and if you were offended by them, then you're just as much of a fragile fucking snowflake as you claim your opposition to be. I think, you know, the worst offense though is using the term SJW unironically. That's just cringe. You know, 2016 just called, they want their fucking buzzword back.
Stop now, come back. I love you.
Liar!
I mentioned earlier that a lot of these Fandom Menace types are really only saying a lot of the shit that they say for clickbait, and this is 100% true. Even some of the original founders of the original group before it became decentralized literally admitted to making these Star Wars outrage videos not because they genuinely believed most of it, but because they got views and made them money. This kind of thing has snowballed over the years to the point where a lot of weird rumors and lies have been circulating, and many people seem to be taking them as fact despite them having no evidence to them at all. For example, it seems like every few months there's a new rumor about the head of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, being fired or stepping down from her position. None of it has ever been true. The same rumor has been circulating for like years at this point, and at no point were any of these rumors even remotely accurate. Like this is a new level of fucking cope, you know what I'm saying? Like these people hated the new trilogy so much that they created this like fictional reality in their heads in which the person that they viewed as responsible for them is fired.
Don't worry, Chewie. The mean lady's gone. She can't ruin our franchise anymore.
Like I get it, right? Like y'all need a scapegoat to blame for why Star Wars is bad now or for why you hate Star Wars now, but a lot of the anger towards Kathleen Kennedy is very misdirected. Y'all will bitch and moan about how Kathleen Kennedy is ruining Star Wars when they make a few movies you didn't like, whilst also praising Clone Wars and Mandalorian for being free of her control and in the hands of the great Dave Filoni. Well, guess what, fucking retard? Kathleen Kennedy is just as much a part of Mandalorian and Clone Wars as she is the films. She's an executive producer on everything anything Star Wars. She's not even a fucking writer. Go blame the writers, not the executive producer whose only job is to make sure everything is on brand and on budget. Oh, and Dave Filoni. Well, he's a pretty liberal guy if you look into what he actually believes. You know, he's one of those SJWs y'all hate so much, but y'all won't be mad at him because he made stuff that you like. Another example of these weird lies is Brie Larson. Famous for her role as Captain Marvel in the MCU, Brie Larson has publicly expressed interest in being in a Star Wars movie. This is the only thing that has ever been publicly stated regarding Brie Larson and Star Wars. She's never been in a Star Wars movie, never been involved with the series, she just expressed interest in playing a Jedi or something. Yet for whatever reason, the Fandom Menace likes to treat Larson as if she has been in a Star Wars movie and has been actively ruining the series for years. You will find tons of angry tweets and comments aimed towards her, saying things like, you know, how dare you ruin Star Wars? It's your fault Star Wars sucks now. And much like with Kathleen Kennedy, there are a bunch of people who have created these fictional realities in their heads where Brie Larson was in Star Wars and then got fired. It's genuinely fucking insane. Now, don't get me wrong, there are reasons to dislike Brie Larson. Some of her political takes are a little bit too id-pull for my liking, a little bit fucking out there, and she's been a bit aggressive towards some of her critics, right? I assume that's why a lot of these Fandom Menace types don't want her involved in Star Wars, but that is no reason to treat her like she's already in the series and has been actively ruining it for years. Honestly, I wonder how much of the Brie Larson hate is people genuinely getting her confused with Daisy Ridley. Like, honestly, they look vaguely similar, so I'm assuming that people who don't give a shit probably get them confused. Example number 3 comes in the form of Pedro Pascal, who plays Din Djarin in The Mandalorian. Nearing the end of Season 2's release, rumors began circulating that Pascal was unhappy with the production staff and didn't like that his character wore the helmet all the time, so that they would write him out of the show and then replace him with Boba Fett. This turned out to be completely false, as Pedro Pascal himself revealed in an interview that there was no behind-the-scenes drama at all, and when that rumor fell flat, they moved the goalposts and instead claimed that Pascal would not be coming back for a 3rd season. This was also proven to be false, as he recently just signed on for a 3rd season, with his stunt double also confirming the same thing. These rumors had literally no source, yet their prevalence led to a lot of misinformation within the Star Wars community. This is a really weird rumor to me, because even people who hate what Disney has been doing still love The Mandalorian. The Fandom Menace people love The Mandalorian, but every so often we get these people trying to justify their hatred for Disney by tearing down a show that they actually fucking like. So much for saving what you love by destroying what you hate, am I right? These people genuinely want to believe so hard that every time a good episode of The Mandalorian comes out, that fucking Kathleen Kennedy's just sitting there seething in her fucking chair. How dare they make fucking good Star Wars? How dare they make good Star Wars, those motherfuckers? Yet another of these weird lies are the ones that put words in the mouths of prominent Star Wars figures, namely George Lucas. George Lucas, of course, created Star Wars back in the 70s and is responsible for the first 6 movies, and he was the head of Lucasfilm until the Disney buyout in 2012. George has made it very clear that he was not a fan of the new trilogy, and it's clear to see why if you read his statements on it. They consulted with him for ideas for the new trilogy, essentially ignored his input, and then created movies that he viewed as lacking innovation and his signature charm. Perfectly reasonable why he wouldn't like the new trilogy, right? But the Fandom Menace has taken his distaste for the trilogy to a whole new level, claiming that George is the new leader of the Fandom Menace and shit like that, just because he said that he was disappointed by the new trilogy. You'll see clickbait titles out there like, George Lucas hates Disney's Star Wars, and shit like that, which highly exaggerate Lucas's actual feelings towards the films. He doesn't even hate everything Disney has done. He actually likes The Mandalorian, and he actually likes Rogue One. He's just disappointed in the new trilogy because it's not what he would have done. The Fandom Menace have said similar things about John Boyega, who played Finn in the sequel trilogy. Boyega has publicly stated that he didn't like the movies that he himself was in. The Fandom Menace, of course, took this as, see, the movies are bad. Even the guy who was in them hates them too. That means we're right, guys. But let's be real. It doesn't fucking mean anything. It doesn't mean that he's on your fucking side just because he didn't like the movies. Of course, I'm leaving out plenty of examples like how people made shit up about Mark Hamill being anti-Disney, but I guess moral of the story, the Fandom Menace will exaggerate and make shit up just for the sake of creating outrage, which then gives them clicks and makes them ad revenue. Any sensible person will think, yeah, I didn't really like the new movies, and then kind of leave it at that. The Fandom Menace takes that a step too far, where they're saying, yeah, we didn't like the new movies, and we hate the people involved in them. And then they'll go about proving that by any means necessary, which includes the immense LARPing that they do with pretending people are being fired and all that kinds of shit. I think the real lesson here is that I am in the wrong fucking business. I should just drop everything right now and just start making shitty, outraged Star Wars videos. I will make 10 times more than I'm making right now. Holy fuck. We've talked about the politics and the weird lies, but all of that could have been forgiven if the Fandom Menace weren't a bunch of toxic assholes. Now let it be known that being negative does not equal being toxic. Criticize the movies, say what you don't like about them, whatever. Being negative in and of itself is not inherently toxic. What is toxic is when you straight up harass the people responsible for making the things that you disliked, and this is exactly what the Fandom Menace does. Let's get into some examples. First example is pretty notorious, but Kelly Marie Tran, who played Rose in The Last Jedi, was essentially bullied off of social media because she played a character people didn't like. Tran received all kinds of comments from angry fans that weren't even remotely constructive, going as far to make fun of her appearance, her race, and her weight. If I need to tell you that this is not okay, then there's no fucking hope for you. Oh, but Matt, maybe they were just talking about a character and not her. Oh, shut the fuck up. I don't buy that for a goddamn minute. It's the actress's Instagram. They made fun of the character's appearance, which is in turn the actress's appearance, and they did so in a way that was not constructive and is completely unprecedented. And in some cases, straight up racist. I don't throw the term racist around loosely. The Fandom Menace needs to learn to separate the characters from the actors who play them. It's fine if you didn't like Rose. I didn't like Rose personally, but that's no reason to take that out on Kelly Marie Tran. Leave her alone. Another example is Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson, if you don't know, wrote and directed The Last Jedi, and due to that film's divisive nature, the Fandom Menace decided to take their anger out on him. At least they're aiming their anger in the right direction this time. I'll give them points for that. You know, just by virtue of being the guy responsible for The Last Jedi, Johnson was in for a lot of criticism and harassment anyways, but I'll admit, he kinda stoked the flames and made it a lot worse for himself. I've always said on this channel to criticize the writing itself and not the writers as people, you know, separate the art from the artist type of thing, if you will. And I still stand by this, but Rian Johnson's a bit of a gray area, I'll admit. When people did give him genuine criticism on Twitter, he responded to it very childishly, saying things like, well, you haven't written anything, so you can't criticize my writing, on some fucking Butch Hartman type shit. And this opened the door for the people who were already genuinely harassing him to just harass him even more. I'll be honest, as somebody who did not like The Last Jedi that much, I think he dealt with that harassment pretty fucking well, publicly calling us harassers, man babies, and shit like that. Like, it's kind of funny putting your harassers on blast. Like I said, the problem was that he stoked the flames and was pretty immature about genuine criticism, so it's kind of on him that it happened to the degree that it did, but that doesn't make it okay. People are still constantly harassing Rian Johnson to this day, blaming him for shit that wasn't even his fault, and some even going as far to create entire troll accounts dedicated to straight up making fun of the dude. For example, this Twitter account, @RuinTheManBaby, you know, Ruin Johnson, get it? Because he ruined Star Wars, real fucking original, guys. Look at this, he's got a dartboard with his face on it and shit. That's totally not fucking unhinged. Like, I could appreciate the dedication, but you need some fucking help, my guy. Like, bro, the movie came out like 4 years ago. You need to fucking relax. A movie that you didn't even like is living in your head rent-free like that. I couldn't be me. I can't get over the dartboard thing. That's like fucking genuine insanity. Anyways, while Johnson's response to the criticism and harassment was not the ideal way to go about it, you know, he's not exactly innocent here, but that shouldn't really matter. He shouldn't have been getting harassed in the first place. Criticized, sure, but not harassed. I think some of the worst shit the Fandom Menace has done is when they besmirch the name and disrespect the dead in the name of their little fucking crusade. Prominent Star Wars actors such as David Prowse and Jeremy Bulloch were two names that passed away somewhat recently, and when you go to posts of fans and people who worked with them paying their condolences, you'll see Fandom Menace people saying shit like, these were the real ones who made Star Wars great, not the shills who make it now. And it's like, dude, have some fucking respect. You know, you can pay respects to people involved with this franchise without making everything about how much you hate the new movies. It's like it's their only personality trait, the fact that they don't like Disney Star Wars. We've seen this with almost every Star Wars actor who has passed away in recent years, whether it be Carrie Fisher, Kenny Baker, Christopher Lee, Peter Mayhew. Almost all of them have had their deaths used as an opportunity for the Fandom Menace to further their anti-Disney movement. I genuinely fear for the day where George Lucas inevitably moves on to the next life and the Fandom Menace uses his death for sympathy points. Genuinely fucking disgusting. Most of our examples today were related to The Last Jedi, but when you look at the franchise as a whole, I'm sure there are people who harass Daisy Ridley or Oscar Isaac or anyone for playing characters that they didn't like or for making movies that they didn't like. Hell, even if we look back in time to the prequels before the internet was even that mainstream, actors like Jake Lloyd and Ahmed Best, who played young Anakin and Jar Jar respectively, got death threats for fucking years because people hated the prequels and their characters so much. I guess some things never change, right? You know, whenever there's a new Star Wars movie, there are gonna be people there to hate it and harass the people involved, I guess, you know? Harassment is gonna happen regardless, and it's not just limited to Star Wars, but that doesn't make it okay. So after all that we've looked at today, I think it's fair to say that the Fandom Menace went the way of Anakin Skywalker. They were unhappy with the status quo, Disney in this case, and were right to question it, but in doing so they went down a rabbit hole filled with manipulation and contradictions and ultimately fell from grace. What started as a group with seemingly good intentions of improving the Star Wars series turned to the dark side and became a decentralized, unmoderated mindset fueled by politicization, lies, and harassment alongside immense inconsistency in their arguments. The Fandom Menace has a rallying cry, saving what we love by destroying what we hate, which is amended from something Rose said in The Last Jedi, where she says, "That's how we're gonna win. Not by fighting what we hate, but by saving what we love. Yet ironically, that quote is kind of the thesis of all of Star Wars. In every single Star Wars movie, we see that hatred is powerful but will lead you down an undesirable path, while love is the exact thing that fuels our heroes. So in an ironic twist, the Fandom Menace amending this quote and embracing hatred shows that they completely missed the point of the movies that they claim to be saving. But let's be honest, the original trilogy doesn't need saving. They are still, to this day, the best Star Wars movies, and nothing Disney does with the series is going to change that. If you don't like the new movies, which is perfectly reasonable, you don't have to include them in your headcanon. You can just disregard them. You don't have to watch them. The original trilogy can still exist in a vacuum, completely independent from the sequels, or even the prequels, or anything else in the current canon. You can watch them again and again on their own, and they are still perfectly fine. Your enjoyment of the series should not be dictated by whatever is considered canon. Nobody is forcing you to accept the new movies. Don't like what they did with Luke in The Last Jedi? Cool. Then you don't have to acknowledge it and factor it into the old movies. Nobody's making you do that. For like another example, if you liked the old expanded universe, the Legends continuity, then that could be your headcanon. Just because something isn't canon anymore doesn't mean that you're not allowed to look at it. You're not allowed to like it. So at the end of the day, the Fandom Menace are the prime example of a toxic fandom. Y'all thought Sonic the Hedgehog or Pokemon's fandoms were bad? Nah, y'all got nothing on the fucking Star Wars fans, bro. Obviously, not everybody who disliked the new movies aligns themselves with the Fandom Menace, and not everybody involved with the Fandom Menace is inherently toxic. But I think it's pretty telling that many of the people who do align themselves with this mindset are openly bigoted, and it's not really a good look for your movement. This is why sometimes I'm hesitant to say that I dislike the sequel trilogy, because then I'd be lumped in with these types of people, and I have enough of a following to where I don't want to deal with the fucking smoke. Film Twitter ruined an entire generation of fandoms. I genuinely do wonder though, do these people not realize how much of a fucking Melvin they sound like when they say shit like, oh, they're ruining Star Wars, the SJWs are ruining geek culture, they aren't even real fans of Star Wars. Like, do people realize how fucking cringe that sounds? Like it's a movie, fucking relax, go outside or something. But that is all I have for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like if you did, and in the comments below, let me know what your favorite piece of Star Wars media is, and let me know what you think of the Fandom Menace as a whole. Ooh, forgot to mention, right? To go along with this video, I've released a new merch line on my Teespring store, where you can get this design, this nice little design here, where it says, you know, it's a space movie for children in the style of like the Clone Wars logo. I thought it was pretty clever. I designed it myself. I'm a big brain individual, so if you guys want to check out that shirt and support the channel in the process, go check it out and get yourself a nice shirt to trigger fucking Fandom Menace crybabies. Subscribe for more videos like this one, click the bell if you want that shit to actually work, and check out my Patreon to help support the channel and get some extra content on the side. I've been MattCMG. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you. That was fucking cringe. I fucking hate myself.
This is Admiral Biatch to base camp. It seems the stormtroopers have gone on strike and I have no experience with this type of shit. Who should I call for help?
It's the V to the A to the D-E-R. Reconstructing the Death Star with my slick suede suit that's black like tar. Fucking you up no matter who you are. Tell them motherfuckers about this here dark side. Pull up on your planet, Death Star, drive by. And we'll beat the rebels cause their scales ain't shit. And in my TIE fighter zigzag stay lit. Oh shit! You're on the scene, 900-year fiend smoking Dagobah green. Bitches on my tip like Lando on liquor. You're just jealous cause my black dick's thicker. Yo, tell him Chewie, last night I had Leia all drunk wanting to do me. Shut the fuck up, man, Leia's my sister. The only thing you're getting is a beat-off blister. Luke, use the Force before intercourse, but Luke, don't forget, bitches ain't nothing but hoes and tricks. Obi-Wan, I'm the top gun. The chosen one, hotter than both suns. Vader ain't shit, his head's cut off and split. He's slower than the first Pentium chip. Dark side. No point to get worse to this fucking universe. Rebels. You know we'll fucking win, cause we'll fight to the end. Dark side. I can feel the anger dwelling within you, rebels. You also feel Vader's dick in you, biatch! Jabba, you ain't nothing but a fat ass slug. Fake gold chain, you sorry ass thug. Sitting in your palace with your blue-headed whore. Trapdoor to the Rancor. Oh my, goodness gracious me. I'm a gay man's golden fantasy. Programmed for homo ecstasy. 10 million forms of gay positioning. For my golden shower, you must pay a fee. But R2-D2 gives it up for free. R2-D2, watch your language. Always having sex with robotic strangers.
These are like to drink and smoke all night. Misa like to fight and fuck your wife. Misa no care cause Misa so down. Misa will fuck you with me tongue. You say what's a Misa cause a Misa want some. You say what's a Misa cause a Misa want some. You say what's a Misa cause a Misa want some. Misa want some cause Misa wanna come.